A top Iranian official is now exclusively telling CNN that a potential peace deal to end the war is deadlocked. Iran's supreme leader's advisor says that negotiations are stalled until President Trump releases $24 billion in frozen Iranian assets. The advisor then goes on to threaten the possibility of a wider war, spreading to the Mediterranean, into the Indian Ocean as well, if the U.S. resumes fighting. Let's discuss with Democratic Congresswoman and House Foreign Affairs Committee member Madeleine Dean. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you in person.
Good to be with you.
How should the U.S. respond to this threat of expanding the war and the demand for $24 billion before a deal is even secured?
What I wish we would do is work with diplomats. You've seen that the president has not relied upon diplomats. We had Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, before us this week in committee, and I told him I had wished that he would have been the leader in this and very many other things diplomatically needed around the world. Unfortunately, the president is relying upon real estate deal makers instead of diplomats. Obviously, that has to be an extraordinary non-starter. It shows that there's a terrible disconnect between what the U.S. should be seeking, which is an end to this war, an end to hostilities, and some of those ambitions that shifted back and forth with this president, whether it had to do with missiles, whether it had to do with human rights. Remember those causes.
Sure.
For the citizens and folks who were just slaughtered by the Iranian leadership, or about the nuclear weapon.
Yeah, I want to ask you about some of those priorities in a moment, but if to you this $24 billion is a non-starter, what is an alternative that would, in the words of this Iranian official, build trust with Tehran while still maintaining leverage for the United States? Because if these assets are unfrozen, then what leverage does the U.S. have to extract concessions on things like nuclear ambitions?
We mustn't unfreeze those assets without actually getting some sort of justice and a deal. Sadly, what should have happened is we should have built from the JCPOA. How it is that this president in his first term just simply tore up a deal with no better alternatives and then goes to war, goaded on by Mr. Netanyahu, and really against what we understand to be some of his top advisors. But he goes into this war, I think, under a false assumption that it would be quick and easy because he had the Venezuela hit, and he just didn't understand the consequences. We need to get out of this war. We need to be sure that Iran never possesses a nuclear weapon, and the only way to do that is through diplomacy and actual understanding of the complexity of that, putting back in place inspectors and an international community around this issue.
Back to the priorities that you'd mentioned, one of them initially had been to prevent Iran from supporting proxies in the region, and this gets to the dynamic between Israel and Lebanon and Hezbollah. Right. Lebanon's president told CNN's Christian Amanpour that Tehran was using his country as a bargaining chip through continued support of Hezbollah. Obviously, eliminating Iran's proxies has been a point for the United States and on domestic policy for a long time. I wonder if you see that as a requirement currently for any agreement.
I hope so. Obviously, Iran has had proxies within the region, has kept the region unstable because of its flood of proxies and the use of resources, illegal resources, to support terroristic activities in other countries. Look where we are, though, however. And we see Israel in southern Lebanon in particular flattening whole suburbs, flattening buildings, killing civilians. This is not the way we should be going about this. It's sadly reminiscent of Gaza. Just go in and flatten. Fortunately, the United States is not participating in that military endeavor by Mr. Netanyahu. But look how unstable the region is, and we are partners with Mr. Netanyahu in the war. Take a look and listen to what conflicting things Secretary Rubio said about the war. The war is over. The war is not over. We've won the war. We've not won the war. Oh, well, it's not over, but epic fury is over, that portion of it. Nobody believes any of that. That is not the way to actually see your way clear. The administration is in a war of its own making, never went to the American people with a clear message of why we are at this war that has cost $100 billion, 14 American lives, thousands of civilians, hundreds of wounded soldiers, never came to Congress, never went to the American people, and now they are bogged down in it.
I want to ask you about domestic politics as well, Congresswoman. Senate Republicans passed this immigration enforcement bill without any amendments blocking the president's $1.8 billion weaponization fund, money that could pay January 6th rioters. When the bill lands in the House next week, what steps are Democrats prepared to take potentially to try and block that fund?
Well, we will do everything in our power to try to block it. But this is another example of the administration flailing. What is it, 2.5 weeks ago, that this insane fund was put forward, a settlement agreement, Trump suing himself and settling with himself by way of his personal attorney, acting attorney General Todd Blanche. You heard what he said in front of us in committee this week. Just insane things like we are not pursuing the $1.776 trillion weaponization fund. And when asked by members, the ranking member, Grace Meng, well, will you put that in writing after all? You know, the original is in writing. Well, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. What utter nonsense. He gave himself wiggle room to obey the president, as the president says he really loves the fund. We'll do everything in our power. And fortunately, the president has stepped way too far. Republicans don't buy this fund.
So the Senate bill would fund ICE and Border Patrol through the rest of Trump's term, preventing any debate or future shutdown over immigration enforcement tactics. Obviously, Democrats held up Homeland Security funding for something like 75, 76 days earlier this year to try to get changes to warrant requirements, body cameras, masks, etc. None of that is in this bill.
Correct. And more funding is in this bill. $70 billion more. ICE doesn't need another dime. In fact, we need to pull back money from ICE.
Was it the right approach for Democrats to force that shutdown earlier this year if ultimately none of the things that you wanted added to immigration enforcement wound up?
Well, I don't agree that that was the framing. The Republicans were in full control. The Speaker sent his folks home. We didn't force the shutdown. The Republicans have the trifecta. They've got the House, they've got the Senate, they've got the White House. So the shutdown was their failure, and their failure to deal with that which communities want them to deal with, Republicans and Democrats. ICE has been in my community. I have visited ICE detention camps, as I call them. I've been to Dilley and see the inhumanity of the treatment there. And these, Boris, as you know, are not the worst of the worst. They're children. They're children who are sick. There are young adults, women, parents, children who are terrified, crying, not able to sleep, not able to eat. ICE needs to be shut down in terms of all of what they have done, and sadly, they just moved them another $70 billion.
Before we go, Congresswoman, I've been asking this of all your Democratic colleagues. Do you support Graham Plattner's candidacy for Senate in Maine?
I think it's so distressing, all of the stories that are coming out, and they're more and more, it seems, by the hour. I'm not a voter in Maine, but he has disqualified himself in my eyes. He is not qualified to be a representative, a senator. We'll see what Maine does about it, and I know Governor Mills remains on the ballot, but he has disqualified himself.
Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate
Thank you.